Research and development expense. This topic is related to the valuation of intangible assets. Remember, the intangible assets can be acquired from purchase or internally developed. So purchase, the value of the intangible assets is evident, so we can use the purchase price and any other necessary expense to be the book value of intangible assets. However, for the eternal developed, the expenditures on research and development will be recognized as expense immediately when they are incurred. The reason a US GAAP recognize research and development expenditure as expense immediately is because these expenditures have very high likelihood of failure. In other words, the possible benefits of these expenditures is not probable. So we cannot capitalize these expenditures. This also shows the conservative of US GAAP. First, what's the definition of research and development? There are two separate things, although we report them together in the income statements. Research is related to the scientific research. Is applied research or critical investigation to discover new knowledge that helps developing a new product or service or new process or technique or improving an existing product or process. This expense is to discover new knowledge. Well, development is different. It is the translation of research findings. Okay, so that's the from research. Translate research findings into a plan or design for a new product or process, or improving existing product or process, whether intended for sale or use. So what are included in the R&D costs? It includes the salary, wage, and labor costs of the R&D personnel. So this represents the salary wages payable to the scientists, researchers, and their assistants. Also includes cost of material, equipment, facility, and the intangible assets used in the research and development project. It may also include the cost of service performed by others and a reasonable allocation of indirect cost related to the R&D activities. So these are components of a typical research and development cost. If an asset is purchased just for a single research and development project, the cost of this purchase will be recognized as part of R&D expense immediately in the current year. If the asset purchase is for more than one R&D projects, so the depreciation or amortization of these assets is included as R&D expenses only in the period the assets are used for the R&D activities. From R&D activities, finally, to the sales of product or process, it should be a long journey. There's a clear boundary whether the cost should be recognized as R&D expense or non-R&D expenses. The boundary is whether it is start of commercial production. So here we are provided a list of R&D costs that are incurred after the start of R&D activity and before the start of commercial production. Basically, after the commercial production, this is commercialized of the R&D achievements. So here is a list of costs which are different from the R&D activities. We are given 5 expenditures. So we are making decision which costs should be reported as R&D costs. The first one, R&D salary and wages, 10 million. Yes. R&D supplies consumed during this year, 2024. Yes. And the payments for others for service performed in connection with R&D activities. So total is 14 to 100,000. So we debit R&D expense and credit cash. The purchase of R&D equipment is not considered as a part of R&D cost. The reason is this assets, the equipment, was purchased and employed in other projects. So we will record this as a purchase of equipment. Patents filing and legal costs is not part of the research and activity. We recognize R&D expense, which is the sum of these three expenses or costs. For the purchase of R&D equipment, we debit equipment and credit cash. Again, the reason is this equipment will be employed in other projects. During this year, this assets is also depreciable, so we should recognize depreciation expense. And since this equipment was used in multiple projects, so the depreciation expense will be part of the research and development expense. So we debit R&D expense and credit accumulated depreciation. So this will reduce the book value of this R&D equipment. Finally, when the company filed for the patent with a U.S. Patent Office, the patent fee will be capitalized as the value of the patent, 100,000. Credit 100,000. In summary, the total expenditure 19,300. Initially, 14,200,000 will be recognized as expense immediately. The purchase of the R&D equipment will be capitalized as an asset with debit equipment and credit cash. Patents filing fees is capitalized as the value of the patent. Actually, during 2024, the total R&D expense, we should add the $500,000 depreciation expense. So the total R&D expense incurred during 2024 will be $14,700,000. If the patent is just for eternal use, so that's all the accounting treatments. But if the patent finally sold as an asset, the company who developed these intangible assets should capitalize all the value.